welcome to another edition of the SEANC View podcast. We have the regular crew in here today. I'm Jonathan Owens, Communications Director here at SEANC, joined by Ardis Watkins, Executive Director, Suzanne Beasley, Government Relations Director, and Sam Cline. Let's just call you podcast producer now, right?
That works.
Okay. She's also the digital communication specialist, but in this room, you'll be the podcast.
Our in-house Gen Zer.
In the podcast pod, you'll be our podcast.
Sounds like most of us. Call me whatever. Pretty much.
Well, we had a pretty popular episode last week from the numbers that I've seen so far, and we've been sharing it a little more, and it seems like people are really interested in the healthcare debate that we had last week, the 3-hour-long healthcare debate. No, it was only, I think, 42 minutes. So, Sam, you did a good job of cutting that down and making it sound like a coherent thought throughout.
It's a lot of information that we
Well, it's a lot of change on the horizon.
Several tangents.
So, did you guys get any feedback from anything at all yet? Or you did have some meetings with some folks over at the State Health Plan, correct, Ardis?
Yes, I met with Thomas Friedman, the Executive Administrator of the State Health Plan, who I think is reaching out to all the different constituencies involved to basically just talk, not lay out their plans yet. We don't know a lot of specifics about the plans, although, Suzanne, we were talking about the fact that it came out in the media Friday that
there's some consideration of the premium being based on what employees make in salary.
Meaning you pay more.
Yeah.
If you make more, you pay more for your health care.
That's not good. We were having a discussion earlier. If you've got an employee who's making $70,000 or $80,000 with a serious health condition, they may be struggling already as well. So just because they're making $70,000 or $80,000 and you increase their premium doesn't mean that they are actually in a position to be able to afford that. So there's so many things that we have to consider before just jumping on, basing it on salary.
Well, that's an assumption.
Don't do it at all.
They're talking about salary is an assumption that the only way you can solve this is by more money out of the employees. That is a false,
so here's my thing.
False assumption.
So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if that's the way we're going to play it with employee salaries and what their premiums will be, why are we not doing this with providers? Because they pay a range of amounts to providers. We don't know what those are because they're secret contracts.
We know the range. Some providers make 10 times what others do.
If you're going to treat state employees that way as far as premiums go, then why in the world are you not looking to your providers and charging them based on what we pay out to them? Better yet, why are you not asking for transparency so you can see what exactly you are paying for to all of the providers?
Yeah, so we posted the podcast and stories on our Facebook page, and the response was, as expected, folks were not happy about premiums on the rise. Folks were calling for one-term briner, as a few folks said. And, our state employees are obviously not excited about paying more for their premiums.
And we can't go try to sell it to them because we would be really committing association malpractice if we said there's no other way.
Yeah.
Right.
When this is actually kind of funny to me. I did an interview just today with Tim Boyum, actually, who's awesome. He's Mr. North Carolina Political Interviews. And he remarked, Treasurer Briner says he's not going to the legislature for this money. So are y'all wanting the legislature? I said, it's not even a matter. We're not even asking them to provide an appropriation for the health plan. We're asking them to take away the part of the law that allows secrecy of these contracts. And he asked me, do you think that's going to yield enough money if you could see those and alter the contracts that you wouldn't need to ask the legislature for money? And I said, it is our assumption because everybody wants so badly to keep them secret.
Right.
So they must be pretty doggone good. But if not, at least then we know. And we could tell folks there's just no other way.
So for decades and decades, Blue Cross Blue Shield has been the administrator of this plan, and they've negotiated those contracts. With Aetna stepping in, do you see any change in that, or is that pretty much a standard practice among administrators? Is there any room for...
If they don't have to be public about it,
it's just good business not to be, right?
I mean, how much pressure is on somebody if the job they do is never really going to be known? How much pressure is on them to do a good job?
Yeah.
But think about state employees. Their salaries are on display. for the media to see, everything about state employees. But if you've got a contract with the government, you enjoy this protected status where it doesn't make any sense to most people. You could be absolutely fleecing the government. No one will ever know. And yet we're going to really go out of our way to make sure that the 35 grand some employee in Onslow County is making is broadcast to the world.
Right.
For what?
Mm-hmm.
What's that going to change?
A common thought on the Facebook comments was, we missed Dale Falwell already. So just throwing that out there.
Well, he fought a good fight about it, but,
was a friend for a long time.
So where do we go from here? I know the story, I don't think we mentioned it last week. We didn't have a date for it, but I think the News and Observer story said that the State Health Plan's Board of Trustees will meet on February 7th to discuss the topic. But the premium increases remain a 2026 problem, according to Treasurer Briner. And he said, we do have a little bit of time, but not a lot. Is that surprising?
No, they have 2 budget cycles, so they've got enough runway. I keep saying this. If they would come out and say, we have to have access to all of the contracts, we can't possibly recommend who needs to pay what with public dollars or with state employee retiree dollars, we've got to get this information. Then they've got plenty of time. They've got time to do that. It doesn't take long once you get the information to plug those numbers in if you were to make adjustments. And adjustments in this case would mean where you're overpaying for healthcare, stop it.
But that's complicated a little bit by the fact that the legislature has to pass a 2-year budget, right? Would that not be necessary in that budget?
This budget?
Yeah, the upcoming one.
For 2026. Well,
No,
because it's an
to.
expansion budget in 2026. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So
don't.
they can tackle it then.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously we'll keep watch on this issue. We're going to be reaching out probably to our members to take action ahead of that meeting in February, just to let the plan folks know that we're here and we're watching. And
Well, yeah, and there's so many, it appears there's a whole lot of new board of trustees members of the health plan. And that's a group nobody really knows, but who hold amazing power over the lives of state employees and retirees. And not many of them have any connection to, and none
they're
of them
responsible for
none of
making
them are low-paid.
recommendations to the GA. So
none of them are low-paid state workers or retirees. None of
should
them.
we maybe review that a little bit? Like what happened? Remember, we had a podcast on this whole subject when we lost a seat there.
Well, the bottom line is when it was set up for the Board of Trustees to exist, there were going to be experts and then real life people. There was supposed to be one active teacher, one retired teacher, one active state employee, one retired state employee. And the idea there was that people who have to live with these decisions and for whom, that can be tough based on their public employee salary. But if you put in people who qualify as state employees but don't have your average state employee salary or lower, you're not getting what the goal of the statute or the legislation was, which
It's
was
not in the spirit of the law,
to
right?
put a real person on there living with this. Right. It violates the legislative intent.
we worked so hard on that with former Senator
Apodaca.
Apodaca. His intent was very clear. So
He was a man of the people, truly.
Yeah,
he wanted
he was.
regular people to get in there and have a voice because, this was coming out of a time frame where the Health Plan Board of Trustees, way back in the day, I remember sitting in there and one of them saying with a straight face, state employees need to do things to be healthier. They need to go to Whole Foods and buy organic eggs instead of just buying Food Lion eggs. Now, this is before you really saw organic eggs in a lot of places.
it's before egg issues, period.
But yeah, before eggs became like, I was astounded because I thought, okay, none of them have ever lived on a state employee salary. Organic eggs. What?
We over here eating hamburger helper,
Right. But that's what Senator Apodaca and others at the time in the legislature were trying to solve was this complete disconnect of folks who really probably thought they were doing a real service to the public by coming forth and saying how this health plan should work. And it was kind of belittling.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of many issues we'll be facing this year. And we need your help too. We need members to stand up for yourselves and get involved as well. Stay tuned to that issue. Moving on to another topic that has just ravaged the SEANC staff. Well, one member of the SEANC staff. Last week or so. Sam, it sounds like you have some opinions on the TikTok ban. What's going on? Can maybe you give our listeners who maybe aren't
Who don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you could give us a synopsis because we are not as versed in the subject as you. What's going on with TikTok? I think you should put on your digital communications specialist hat now.
Switch hats.
Okay, so that's what you are now.
So last April, there was a bill package that was introduced to give $95 billion to Ukraine and Israel as relief aid. And a week before that was voted on, there was a legislation slipped in that included a ban on TikTok, which takes effect January 19th. But yesterday, after they decided to have a hearing regarding what was going on, where normal people could come and speak about how TikTok has affected them, because there are 170 million Americans who use TikTok, and millions of those people also, that is their primary source of income.
Wake up, artists.
I
fell asleep there.
I'm absolutely paying attention because I'm thinking, okay, our messaging has to go to TikTok then. This is crazy.
So millions of people who are on TikTok, that is also their primary source of income, that they are about to get stripped away from them on January 19th. And yesterday, Senator...
Oh, like influencers or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also small businesses.
Yeah.
They get a lot of business from TikTok, and they have no way to promote their small businesses that largely anymore without having to pay for ad revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts introduced a bill that would extend a 270-day stay on TikTok so that they can essentially, for the most part, it doesn't sound like they're extending a stay to do more research and figure out if there's a way they can keep it, unless a US-based company were to buy the US assets of it, which there has been a bid. No one knows exactly how much they bid for the money because they have not released that, but Project Liberty has produced a bid. It does not sound like ByteDance/TikTok is going to take it, but
and that was a stipulation in the legislation, wasn't it? That it has to be bought by a U.S.
Yes.
company.
So what Project Liberty has suggested, I believe that is the exact name. If this is confirmed true, we've seen a lot of speculation about
the
different
Shark
things.
Tank guy?
That's what I asked
think it
earlier.
is.
That's just a grift, by the way.
But they have not announced what the bid is, but they are just offering to buy the U.S. assets of TikTok. They are not trying to buy the algorithm because that is intellectual property of China. They're not trying to buy the algorithm. They just want the U.S. assets, and they will build their own interface for U.S. users. Yesterday, Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts introduced a bill that would extend a 270-day stay on TikTok, and Representative Ro Khanna signed on with that. So if that gets voted on in the next...
Ro Khanna.
You said the magic
on
words.
healthcare issues.
If that gets voted on in the next 4 days, because it is supposed to go away at midnight, January 19th.
Mm-hmm.
If that gets voted on the next 4 days and it passes, there could be a 270-day stay, which is...
Every time you say a stay on TikTok, I'm like thinking, death row.
Yeah,
like a stay on TikTok.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a...
So I have some thoughts. We won't make we could do the whole podcast in this.
No.
Maybe we'll start our own podcast.
Do it on TikTok.
On TikTok. So first off, if you make someone sell something by a deadline, right?
Mm-hmm.
That seems like it would depress the value of that thing. So like if the government tells you have to sell this newspaper that I'm holding right here by a certain date or you lose it, right? You basically lose all of the American audience.
Mm-hmm.
Then the value of that would go down. So doesn't it behoove TikTok to just hold out and wait till everyone gets mad and then sell it and make a lot more money?
Everyone already is mad.
Yeah.
Everyone is extremely angry. Even other countries are saying if US gets banned from TikTok, I'm moving wherever they're moving, because that is a lot of other countries' source of entertainment is us looking ridiculous on TikTok. So people from Europe, people from Canada, people from Australia have said on TikTok, we're following wherever the Americans go after this.
Yeah. Well, okay, this is my favorite part of this whole story.
I need to understand that a little better. So basically, we're the court jester for the world,
Yeah, let's
like
laugh
the clown.
for the Americans.
Yes.
Oh my gosh!
So why don't you tell them about this, where you think people are migrating to?
As of right now, everyone that I have seen on TikTok, which is a lot of people, including massive influencers, they are slowly migrating to an app called Red Note.
Okay, now tell us what Red Note is.
Red Note is a Chinese-owned version of TikTok that is primarily everything is in Mandarin. And
solely owned by not solely maybe, but it is owned by the Chinese government. So you went from TikTok, which is probably,
the CEO is from Singapore, and he
may or may not have ties to China, to an app that is totally from
yes, and everyone
Make it
on
make
there.
sense.
I don't think that's going to end well either.
And people on TikTok are joking, saying, you know what, if you want us to be safe and make sure that our data is not going to the Chinese government as is claimed, we're going to voluntarily give it up and download this app and just hang out. People are posting already on there. It's already got a lot of American users on there.
But it's in Mandarin.
Yes, but you can change the language to English. But people are learning Mandarin to interact with people.
Finally, you say something that doesn't kill my brain cells while I'm listening.
People are learning
That's a good
Mandarin,
thing.
and
And
we're also
English,
teaching people who speak Mandarin English.
Awesome.
Okay.
That
Look at
part's
me over
good.
here like, oh, yeah, like I'm not old and not down with this.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, that'll totally be interesting to see what happens. But
It will.
You know.
What am I going to do at bedtime?
exactly, what am I going to laugh at?
Right?
All the cat videos. Where are the cats going to
A scenic podcast. Just listen to it.
go? Over and over and. Instagram Reels. Everything will be 2 weeks late.
Oh, no. See, that's another part of it. People believe that Mark Zuckerberg and a lobbying team he was working with is the big reason that this legislation got introduced.
Oh, I'm sure it's like influenced
And
by.
people are now boycotting all Meta apps, and they're deleting their accounts, they're deleting the apps, and it's causing the stock in Meta to completely crash because people are so angry about TikTok.
You know what I think of when I
Being
hear all
banned.
this is like those memes where it's like two cats fighting and it's like nerd fight. That's what's
So it's
going on.
basically people being
Well-
pissed at Mark Zuckerberg and saying,
It's
we're
the
not going to
end
support
of the world as we know it.
They're like,
All right.
we're not going to support your platforms because
We're not going to play
they
anymore.
believe that he was part of the lobbying team that introduced this legislation that got
Fascinating.
passed
Oh, my goodness gracious.
in order to cause Meta to be one of the number one things again.
But you know,
and people
this
aren't
is real
happy.
though. I mean, I've got friends my age who, a couple of them who are single, and TikTok was like their saving grace when we were on COVID lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, okay. But somebody's trying to save it now through legislation, but it would
Mhm.
control the right of companies to do what they want with their own businesses, right?
So I think the argument is,
Which is great.
yeah.
Because if they can do
Are you
that,
reaching it back to
if
healthcare?
they can do that, yeah, they can put a limit on what these companies can charge us.
Exactly.
Because part of the argument with this hearing that just happened was that it is an attack on the First Amendment right of having free speech. Because there are some people who learn more from TikTok and hear more about what's happening with government, what's happening in the rest of the world, what's happening
Sam,
in their
this is
own
not a
area
good thing.
than they have heard
Yeah.
from the news. And they feel like the government is trying to hide things from them.
Oh, for goodness
So
sake.
you're
And
saying
so that's what they want.
You're saying that some regulation of government is necessary then, right?
Well, I find it interesting because it sounds like government has stepped in and put in regulations around the free market with
Mhm.
regard to some things, but then with regard to our right not to be massively overcharged for life-saving drugs, not so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
And I just find that strange.
I had another thought totally separate from this. Are we done with
I mean,
TikTok talk? or
Well,
no?
seriously, protecting us from the evils of the TikTok,
Yeah.
but not keeping
Shows
our
shows you
medicines
the
out of reach.
priorities.
Yeah.
That's where I've learned to
America, right?
dance, y'all.
I know.
I got
Well,
sick
it
dance
is-
moves.
It's not going anywhere.
You always knew how to dance.
hopefully that bill passes.
Nothing.
Now, see, no one knows what's
Nothing
going
too
to
bad or
happen.
too great ever happens.
No one knows what's going
There's
to happen.
always
if the
somewhere
ban
in the
passes.
middle.
Well, this
Yeah.
is going to be
What's the distraction for? What else is going on?
Yeah.
Why this distraction? So
Yeah, no one knows what's going to happen to TikTok if the ban goes into effect.
I see.
It's either going to be a total blackout and they shut off all servers in the United States so that we can't see TikTok at all anymore. Or it'll be similar to what happened with Vine back in 2014, 2015, when it got taken off the App Store. And so you couldn't get updates anymore. And it just slowly started to glitch and phase out to where you could not use it.
That's
anymore.
what happened to Flappy Bird, too.
Yes.
I like Flappy Bird, by the way. A totally different story, but Flappy
Here's
Bird
what's
was
funny. I'm
awesome.
sitting here thinking, this is interesting, but I'm not sure how much it has to do with state employees, and probably more people will be interested in this. Although it does have a state government connection because TikTok was banned.
Yes.
In state government.
And that's why we haven't done as much on TikTok, because it's banned on
State government phones.
Yeah.
Well,
I
didn't
remember when
President
solitaire
Biden
was banned.
do that for federal? Oh, gosh.
Because back in the day, we were all on solitaire.
Yeah.
Minesweeper. Remember that game?
You know, you got to clear your mind every now and then.
So speaking of world events and local connections, when Trump was having the whole I want to buy Greenland thing,
Yeah.
people were starting to say, but what's made in Denmark? We can't have a war with Denmark because Ozempic is
Yeah,
made
I was
in
going to say, can't have the Ozempic.
So
Oh, it
there's
just
a-
all comes full circle, doesn't it?
we're finally going to get our war with Denmark.
Well, yeah, I'm a little bit more concerned over the NATO implications with all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, Denmark,
Oh, it's not. Is it Ozempic?
the company that makes Wegovy,
So-
but of course makes it again down the road here. We're all over the place, but
Yeah.
and by the way, the weight loss drugs, since you bring them up, you know, that's definitely something that there's still an impetus to change that back to where the health plan will cover those. And I think, you know, there's a lot of state employees who would like to see that. There's a lot of state employees that don't want to see that if it means prices go up
Right.
for everybody. And again, SEANC's position is still, don't be mad at each other. Be mad that the drug is allowed to be sold at this multiple times the cost of what it's sold for anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Contact your congressman, contact your state legislator about that. Don't get mad at each other over either needing and wanting the drug or not wanting your premium to go up so some people can have it.
Contact your leaders.
And speaking of that, January 20th, we will have a new president. And President-elect Trump, also came out and said the exact same thing a few weeks ago.
It's hard
About-
not to. It's really hard not to look at the American public right now and say, yep, I think it's a bad thing that you get charged so much more than the whole rest of the world. I mean, if you don't take that position, you definitely can't pretend you give two pippies about the American public.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders had a tweet when he said that. He's like, was he serious? Will he support my legislation to cut prescription drug costs in half? So,
Yeah. I mean,
Possibly
look,
he will.
you never know.
yeah. Well, I think that's a quick and easy, or maybe not quick,
It wasn't
but
quick. Never quick.
it was a good little episode, little entertainment there. Next week, we will have an episode with our officers. We're going to kind of discuss, you know, their careers and what their vision is for Scenic. And then the next week, we will return ready for the legislature. I think that'll be around the legislature coming back.
Yeah.
So we'll preview the session for you.
So
Like-
excited.
But first, we have Martin Luther King.
Yeah, Martin Luther
Coming
King
up.
is on Monday. That's also the inauguration day, right?
It is.
It is.
So Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. As usual, the Department of Administration will be holding its observance program on Friday at the First Baptist Church in Raleigh. It says here 11:45. Hopefully,
Yeah, that
that's
is
correct.
always a very cool event.
Yeah, for state employees. And I guess they will also be doing the John R. Larkin Award presentation at that time. So I know a lot of state employees like to go to that event, correct? And let's see, before we get out of here, we also want to send our condolences to folks in California who are suffering through the fires out there. Sam, do you have an update on the fire situation?
I've been keeping track of the containment. I know that there are quite a few different states who are sending people to help with the fires. Pretty sure North Carolina has probably had some people who have gone out to volunteer. So hopefully they are staying safe as they continue helping with the fires.
And we have a problem with that here too. That sometimes I don't think it's been dry enough this year to have. That's not something we.
But a
want
couple
to have
years
happen.
ago, we had several
Yeah.
meaningful fires and the staff vacancy really hit us there. So people did have to come help us, and I hope everybody's helping California.
Yeah.
So let's move on to John's wacky weird question of the week.
John's wacky weird question of the week.
It always makes me nervous.
We brainstormed long and hard for that. And by that, I mean maybe like 2 or 3 minutes. And Suzanne and I have come up with a question this week. What is your go-to karaoke song? Sam, you start us off.
You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home by Hannah Montana.
Is that even offered at bars?
Yeah.
Hannah Montana's not a person.
That's a long title.
Smiley Cyrus.
Okay. Can you sing? No, just
Go to TikTok. You'll see Sam singing.
I just keep thinking of High School Musical.
I also do. My parents have a karaoke machine at their house. So whenever we go home and bring our friends, we'll sit around the pool and hang out and do some karaoke.
Nice.
And we usually just use our phones to connect it to there. And we'll go to Spotify and basically use the lyrics on Spotify.
We're all in this together. That song from...
That is a song from High School Musical.
My car has karaoke. I have a Tesla. It has karaoke. Yeah. So we can do karaoke.
Are you going to start doing carpool karaoke with Scenic?
So whenever you search like a song, it always gives you the karaoke song first. And so you'll start listening to it and you're like, hey, there's the words.
We actually could have like a scenic station if we wanted to, because there are songs that are very scenic-y.
Yeah.
That we always play at events that we love to dance to.
True.
People love the convention mix.
That's true.
The wobble.
Suzanne, what's your go-to song?
Bring It On Home to Me, Sam Cooke.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
That's a classic. Artists, we're all waiting in anticipation.
I already told y'all anything I like to sing and people love for me to sing, anything by Adele, Celine Dion.
If y'all have never heard artists
I can
sing,
throw some
she's
Mariah
amazing.
Carey, Maria Callas. Was it Callas, the opera singer?
It's
from
those
Days
really
and-
high notes that get...
It is
Something that's really long and drawn out and you can't dance to.
Yeah.
Right?
Those things.
Can we hear a brief
And sometimes Travis Tritt.
verse?
Travis Tritt, there you go.
Tritt.
Yeah.
It's a great day to be alive.
Mine would be, I guess, Return of the Mac.
That's a good one.
My former roommate / friend. Well, he is my friend still. Not my former friend, but Gordon used to sing that at the bars, at the karaoke, and it used to be the hit.
You call yourself, you're like the bars. I mean, the karaoke mom.
Shout out Gordon
At the
Anderson.
Fellowship Hall karaoke.
John and Gordon were...
Yeah.
To be fair, the only place I've ever done karaoke is on a cruise. Maybe that's why they always had a Hannah Montana song or two. Because it was like during the teen club at night when it was like the 15 to 17-year-olds. We'd go over there and they'd have Disney for
The last cruise I was on, some people thought they were like really good at karaoke and they would do like 3 or 4 songs and like...
Are you saying that when I've done Adele and Celine Dion?
They were really feeling Adele.
So we actually have karaoke every year at the Scenic Convention at one of the events. And there are some really amazing
And we have got some talent.
voices out there in the Scenic membership. And I'm kind of always amazed.
I remember one year, the winner of that, we then asked him to sing the national anthem and he tore it up. So
Yeah.
maybe we should do that every year.
It's a lot of
I always
talent
think
out
that.
there.
We need to choose one of our members. I mean, we've got a litany of talent out there. So have one of them sing.
I don't do karaoke well because I make any song known to man country.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like I try really hard because I do enjoy music.
Hit Me With Your Best Shot one year at convention, and it was twangy. We were good though; it was fun.
Y'all will never hear me sing a lick at convention.
I came in my apartment in law school singing "Only the Good Die Young," and my roommate said, "Stop singing country," and I was like, "That was Billy Joel."
Maybe it's your,
It didn't come across
Texas thing.
It's just your
right?
twang.
I know we're often
Come out, Virginia. Don't let me know.
I know we're out in the musical weeds
We
right
are
now, but
gone.
I do vaguely remember artists singing "Apple Bottom Jeans,"
Boots with the fur. Okay.
All right, that's the end. And so ends our episode. Thank you for joining us, and
Thanks,
God bless you.
God bless you.